whereas it is the sense of this town board that the general health, safety, and welfare of the town and its residents shall be better protected if the New York State Department of Transportation would establish the area previously mentioned here as a no parking, no standing zone. Now therefore be resolved that the town board of the town of Southeast hereby authorizes the supervisor to join with the Southeast Highway Superintendent and the Putnam County Commissioner of Highways in any application to request the New York State Department of Transportation to establish a no parking, no standing zone along the easterly and westerly bound portions of New York State Route 6, Danbury Brewster Road, in the vicinity of the Connecticut state border. And be it further resolved that the town clerk be and hereby is authorized and directed to forward a certified copy of this resolution to the Honorable Kevin Palmer, Southeast Highway Superintendent, and the Honorable Harold Gary, Putnam County Commissioner of Highways and Facilities forthwith.
Thanks, Councilman. I second. Roll call vote, please, Ruth.
Councilman Cullen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hudak?
Yes.
Councilman Yee?
Yes.
Councilman Gross?
Yes.
Supervisor Wrights?
Yes, motion carries
5-0.
unanimously. Next item, item 12. Supervisor's proposal to limit any property tax hike in Southeast's 2011 municipal budget to the Federal Consumer Price Index, which is, of course, the national inflation rate. Folks are hurting throughout our community and in neighboring regions. And in certain areas of the town, we have special districts which are particularly burdened. We have folks who are close to losing their homes. Some our seniors on fixed incomes are hurting, and folks are having employment difficulties, and the community needs some tax relief. My proposal is that for 2011, we limit any prospective property tax hike to no greater than the national inflation rate. Comment?
Yeah, well, the only thing I would say is we haven't seen your budget yet, so it's pretty hard to vote on something like this without knowing what the budget's going to be going forward next year. I think all of us would want to have a 0% increase or even a decrease if possible, but we also have a responsibility to present a responsible budget to fund the town departments properly, and at this point I wouldn't feel comfortable even voting on a motion like this without seeing the budget and working on the numbers.
Well, the supervisor's budget, my budget is due September 30, and we're working with the town accountants department right now, and I anticipate a proposal for a property tax freeze, as I recommended last year. For the 2009 municipal budget, the supervisor's budget recommended a property tax cut of approximately 10%. That was defeated, that proposal, by a vote of 3-2, with Councilman Yee and I, and me in the minority. For 2010, I proposed a property tax freeze. That proposal was defeated by a vote of 3-2, with Councilman Yee and me in the minority. This year, we're proposing no increase greater than the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, the national inflation rate, and we're already encountering resistance to that idea.
I think it's a good idea to at least have some sort of basis or a guideline. I find it disappointing that Councilman Cullen doesn't see it that way, but we need some sort of guide to keep the prices at our budget level in check. Right now, there's no sort of guideline or anything that we can work off of, and I commend you for at least looking at the Consumer Price Index to get a basis for this community.
Thanks, Councilman. Other comment?
Yeah, I'm going to commend the board for doing their level best to make certain that we limit our expenditures so that we don't spend taxpayers' monies needlessly. Right now, I think you're all well aware of the fact that we already have a projected, right now we're in a deficit situation, which is alarming. We found out about it recently, last week, and it's alarming to me because at this point in time, we are now going to have to sit down and roll up our sleeves and try to find where we can now limit our spending because we just haven't made it. We're now not near our budget, and you know, quite frankly, it's alarming. You know, I know that this is my first time, my first year on the board, and obviously I've realized that we need to scrutinize our finances a lot better. And I will be personally asking the budget officer, who is Supervisor Wrights, to provide us with monthly reviews and updates similar to the one that our accountant gave us last week, which indicated these quite literally alarming figures. I think what we need to do is to see what is the amount that we now have a deficit. We have to look at the supervisor's budget when it's presented on September 30th. I personally would like to see it as soon as possible, but knowing that the supervisor was in Europe, on a happy occasion, obviously, and now has to roll up his sleeves. That's what I'm saying. I need to look at all of this, quite frankly, before I can say that we're limiting anything. Certainly, I agree with Council Member Cullen that I'd like to say that we are not going to have any increases. The reality is this town needs to meet their financial obligations. We need to be prudent. And at this time, I appreciate the proposal, and it's certainly something that I'd look at. But right now, I can't commit to anything, particularly in light of the deficit that we're facing. And until I see some kind of real figures. I mean, and right now, we are in possession of some figures, and we're going to have to speak as a board to our citizens and say, this is what's going to be needed to be done in order to make certain that we are not in a deficit spending and have to raise taxes. So I'm looking forward to the supervisor's budget, and
You said that.
and right now, that's the way I feel. I don't know if Councilmember Gross wants to add to this, because he's the only one that hasn't spoken.
Well, thanks, Councilwoman. I would like to address certain of your points. In January 2011, which is January this year, I proposed a public bidding or RFPs for engineering services, legal services, and computer services to the town of Southeast. In other municipalities, public bidding or RFPs for these matters are standard. That proposal was defeated by a vote of 3-2. Councilwoman Hudak, Councilman Gross, and Councilman Cullen defeated that proposal. As of mid-year, June of 2011, I advised the board we were spending at a rate of approximately $800,000, an annual rate in excess of $1.6 million on just those three items: engineering, legal, and computer. And it looks like we're on track at this time, as I'm working on next year's budget, to spend in excess of $1.7 million without public bidding, without RFPs, again, on engineering, legal, and computer. With respect to other projects in town, the landfill, which came in about 20% under the engineer's estimate, the Peach Lake Sewer Plant, which came in about 20%, and Wells Camp, again, 20% under budget, under the engineer's estimates for the cost of that project, and the Wells Camp Water Spray Park, which came in about, again, roughly 20% below the engineer's estimate. We could have saved, with a projection of that nature, grounded in hard numbers, projecting that savings onto the proposal in January 2011 that we seek January 2010, that for calendar year 2010, we seek public bidding or we seek RFPs for engineering, legal, and computer. We could have saved in excess or around $340,000. So as the community is looking at the deficit, we can look to that vote in January 2010 and the defeat of the proposal to save money in a straightforward way, as other communities do. And if there's a deficit to fill, then we'll have to address that as we deem appropriate. Councilman Gross.
First of all, the landfill was a major project, and it's estimated by the vendor that we saved $700,000 with the fill we brought in from Armonk. So that was a huge saving, and these are major projects that came along this year. Professional services do not need an RFP. We did some research. We had good companies, reliable companies, to do these particular operations. And you negate the savings we've already made in those areas. And you're throwing numbers out there where you have no backup. You don't know what Sterling would have been versus another company. So I think that's really an unfair item. The bottom line is we have a shortfall. Our general fund is low, if almost non-existent, and it's going to be some pain for 2011, no question about it. I certainly would like to see a zero. I would certainly like to see that. realistically, I think it's going to be tough. We're going to have to start right here at the town board and all take a salary freeze. That's one thing we're going to have to do. I've already contacted representatives from the CSEA and also the Teamsters to talk to their people and to see if they would extend the contract 1 year and take a freeze next year. We don't know where that's going to go, but they're receptive and they will listen. We did the same thing with the school district, and we got a freeze across the board, notwithstanding retirement contributions and unemployment insurance contributions and health contributions. Those things come along for the town as well. They're increasing, like it or not. If you listen to the comptroller, we're going to have an increase in retirement alone for this coming year. So that's not going to be a zero. That's going to be a heavy increase. So we have things out there we really are not all that aware of, and I want to see the budget as well. Once we get that package, we can look at what's there, where we need to go, and we can make some adjustments. The supervisor talks about all the things he wanted to save last year. That means, you know, no funding of the library, no funding of the museum, forget the Putnam Humane Society. All those things were out the window. Eliminate the assessor's office, eliminate the tax collector's office. That's what he wanted to do last year. You got to remember that. Stripped this place bare and we could not function. So we have to realistically look at our responsibilities to service the community in a fair and logical way at the best price. These RFPs are fine for the videographer and the other programs we're going to put out there. But recognize, like we just had Graham here this morning, for many years he's been running the planning for this community. He knows the town. His people know what they're doing. You can't mess around with that kind of a situation. You have to know what you're doing and be intelligent and be smart about it. And I think the town has been that way. So I'm a little resentful of you trying to attack us, as you do every week, for funding one way or the other. We have a problem this year, as many municipalities do, certainly as New York State does, and we'll get through it. There'll be some pain, but we will get through it with a fair budget.
Thank you, Councilman. I would like to note, before commenting further, that we've had a series of votes this evening. Each of those votes have been unanimous. So this town board is able to work together. What I would like to direct the community's attention to at this time is a report by the State of New York Office of the State Comptroller, executive summary, regarding an audit of the town's books, which occurred this past summer at my request. Audit results. And I won't read the entire executive summary. It is available as a public document and so forth, as is the body. Well, anybody who writes into me is going to get a copy of it, and as well as the more lengthy discussion. But I'll just read the pertinent portion of the executive summary. Audit results. The board must improve its oversight of town operations. Because the board failed to provide adequate oversight, fund balance is in danger of being depleted. The town may be paying the town's attorney firm for legal services that should be included in the town attorney's annual salary. Records and reports are not maintained or submitted to appropriate parties in accordance with statutory requirements in the town clerk's office. And the town's procurement process is not designed to ensure that taxpayer funds are being expended in the most efficient manner. The board has not adopted a policy, and town officials have not developed procedures to govern the level and determine the reasonableness of the amount of unreserved, unappropriated fund balance that the town should maintain. The town has repeatedly budgeted for the use of fund balance to finance recurring expenditures. The town's continued reliance on fund balance to pay for operating expenditures has caused the unappropriated fund balance to decline to a point where it is nearly exhausted. The general fund has declined from approximately $2.3 million at the beginning of 2007 to $465,000 at the end of 2009. The board has not provided a written job description to the town attorney or entered into a written contract with the town attorney's firm for legal services. Therefore, neither the attorney nor the board knew what was expected of the attorney for his salary as a town employee and what fees his firm could charge for his services as an independent contractor. We determined that we, being the Office of State Comptroller, of course, this is their executive summary. We determined that the town paid the attorney's firm $117,618 for services that were similar to those the attorney stated he performed as a town employee. We've referred this matter to the New York State and local retirement system for review. In addition, the board did not ensure that the financial statements prepared by the CPA firm were received within 60 days after the end of the fiscal year as required by law. We also found that the board did not provide proper oversight of the town clerk